Welcome to Subramani. This video is more an observation video than as an advisory video. I don't advise people on how to cut down spending, etc. That's not my area of work at all, and I don't deal with people who have issues with their expenses, etc. If anything, I have dealt only with people with money who wanted to invest, maybe in equities, maybe in mutual funds, and I've done training for the wealth managers in banks, etc. So not really my area, but I've been seeing a few people struggle with maybe an income of about 2-3 lakhs a month and not being able to meet all their expenses and living on a hand to mouth basis, right? Paycheck to paycheck, as the Americans would call it. So what are the reasons, what are the causes, or what would I call the top 5 or top 10 common financial mistakes that people make? First is unnecessary expenditure. Now it's very difficult to decide what is necessary and what is unnecessary, and especially if you're an advisor. You cannot thrust your views on the client and say this is what you should not be doing, right? Very difficult for an advisor to say this, right? But you see, when a person has debt, a big amount of debt other than the home mortgage or a car mortgage, you think as an advisor that the first topmost priority should be paying off those loans, whatever the amount be, right? It is maybe 2x your annual salary, 5x your annual salary, whatever it is huge. You want to get rid of it. That should be what you think should be the topmost priority. But other way to look at it is to say, look, I'll never become debt free, I will always be like this, so let me enjoy life as it is. Maybe I'll drop dead tomorrow. So I don't know which is a choice that you make. If it was my case, I would never get into so much of debt, because I would simply not spend money which I didn't have. But people do spend. I mean, I'm not saying that this generation spends and that generation doesn't spend. I've seen bad financial habits and common financial mistakes across generations. People 40-50 years elder to me, I've seen them do that. They leave the debt to their children. I've seen people my age do that, and now I'm seeing people who are in their 30s and 40s also do that. So first thing is unnecessary expenditure. Till you don't repay all these loans, everything is unnecessary expenditure. It is not just a 800 rupee t-shirt, just a 1500 rupee track pant, or just 1,25,000 rupee phone available on installments. I mean, thing is expensive. It's expensive. Just because it's available on installment, it does not become cheap. In fact, it becomes more expensive because you'll take a longer time to repay the loan. So a phone costing 1.25 lakhs or 1.3 lakhs, which actually only professionals need, actually ends up costing you 2 lakhs or 2.25 lakhs, depending on the amount of interest that you pay and for the period of which you've taken the loan. So if you've taken for a 2-3 year loan, obviously factor in interest at 12-13%, 14% maybe, and find out how much the phone is ultimately costing you. So first, unnecessary expenditure, and therefore which leads to number 2 is never ending payments. So everything that you buy is on EMI. So whether it is a air ticket for your family to take a impromptu vacation to Goa, or whether it is fixing the car windshield, or whether it is some sofa to be replaced immediately today now in the house, or anything like that. Anything is a financial emergency, and there is anyway no emergency fund. So everything becomes like, oh, it's available on EMI. So your leisure, your luxuries, your needs, wants, everything gets merged, and therefore there is this line of never ending payments which you keep doing, right? And there is absolutely no thought on how an expenditure should be made, because all expenses have to be through credit card. There is no other way how it can be done, because buying through credit card means automatically it goes into an EMI. Now what happens otherwise, if you talk to the shop or something like that, maybe you will get better terms. but their ego prevents them, or they don't even know that they should ask, so they don't ask for these installments from the vendors. They charge it to their credit card, and then keep paying the installments. So I think it's a line of never ending payments and almost living off the credit card. So every time there is one credit card payment due, you make the payment, then you take money more, you start buying more on that card, use that money to pay off another card. So it's a game that they keep paying. So never ending series of payments through and living through credit cards, right? And amidst all this, they have no problem going and buying a new vehicle, right? I'm not even saying a new vehicle which could be maybe a second hand vehicle, but buying a vehicle is very important. Another problem which I have seen is, you have a vehicle, you think you have to use it for everything. That's not true. Maybe you use a vehicle because you feel safer in a four-wheeler than in a two-wheeler. I'm not even getting into that argument, so that's fine. But it does not mean that when you have to go to buy bread, which is 500 meters from your house or maybe 1 kilometer from your house, there is absolutely no reason why that trip should be made by car. That trip could be made on your feet, but then people will say, oh no, but you don't realize I'm so busy, I can't find time for walking, so bad luck, right? And while on cars, saying I need a bigger car because when my parents come or my wife's parents come, we have to go to the airport or railway station or whatever to pick them up. At that time we need more boot space. Funny, but that is 4 times in a year, right? 5 times in a year, 6 times in a year, not more than that, right? So on those days you hire a car, you just hire an Innova. But to buy a Innova just because 4 days in a year you need that seems to be funny. And I do think that when you're living hand to mouth, if you're living in big cities like Mumbai, Delhi, Chennai, you have decent public transport system, learn to use that. Yes, in some towns where there is no public transport system, learn to use a two-wheeler. Right? So what you can do by walking, walk, what you can do by cycling, cycle, what you can do by motorcycle, go use a motorcycle. And when you have to go out with family, etc., and you think it's raining, it is risky to drive a motorcycle, that's a great time to be using your car. And when you have your car, it does not mean that all your trips have to be made by car. There are times when you have a car, but it is easier to make a trip by train, don't have to look for parking. There are advantages also. But once you have a car, people pretend that, oh my God, how can I not use it, right? So using it everywhere. And then while at it, maybe try buying a second-hand car. That also makes sense. Another thing which I see is people buying a house much bigger than what they need. The broker and the banker together convince them that, oh, it's a once in a lifetime kind of a thing. So instead of buying a 1 BHK, buy a 2 BHK. Or instead of buying a 2 BHK, buy a 3 BHK. Or buy a house with a balcony, with a portico, with all that, and therefore a little cost more. But then they translate that into EMI. So look, if you can pay 84,000, why can't you pay 87,500 or 90,000 or something like that? They don't realize that 84,000 EMI itself is a stretch which you are making out of your salary, and it is going to be hand-to-mouth living. Now, instead of increasing it by another 5,000-7,000, instead of decreasing it by another 5,000-6,000, you go and increase it by 5,000-6,000 because somebody tells you this is once in a lifetime that it is going to happen. Another bad habit which I see is people when they have repaying a housing loan, after 5-6 years the house is appreciated, so they shift the loan provider. Basically they are trying to say we will keep paying interest for the rest of our lives, but there is no need to repay the principal. I don't agree or disagree with this, but then claiming that home equity which you have built by saying, okay, 4 or 5 years I paid interest and I paid an EMI, now can I get a bigger loan? Of course you can get a bigger loan. At least last 5 years what EMI you have paid, let's say you have paid 1 lakh per month EMI, right, just for calculation purposes. So which means you have paid 60 lakhs. Out of 60 lakhs maybe 50 lakhs is interest, but 10 lakhs is principal. And in this time the market value of the house could have gone up, right? So you get a bigger loan, and you again misuse it. How will you use that money? Maybe you go and buy yourself a car or a vacation or anything like that, and therefore that's what I call misuse. Another thing I find with these people is because they are so busy paying off their expenses, they just don't save. So it become a habit saying, oh, I'm repaying so many loans. The day the loans stop, I'll start saving. The loans will never stop because of the standard of living which you have is beyond their income level. If your income level does not allow you that standard of living, just because your friends have that standard of living, you cannot do that. Sit and talk with your spouse. Maybe you're a woman watching this. Sit and talk with your husband saying, look, we are earning 100 rupees. Let us learn to live on 75 or 80. That is the standard of living which you deserve or you justify. Just because your parents were rich and gave you a higher standard of living, now you're trying to catch up with them. It's not going to happen. It's not going to be so simple, right? Especially if your parents have been very successful. So either you join them in their business or whatever, but I'm not getting into all that, but yeah, largely living a lifestyle which is far beyond what you deserve. Another important mistake, common mistake I would think, is not saving stroke investing for retirement. This is going to hurt you real bad, because if you are living paycheck to paycheck at the age of 45, maybe at 55 you don't have that paycheck. Then how will you live, right? This is a question which people have to be asking. And one, though this is largely an American problem, I think Indians should also look at not having debt while they retire. There is some justification for debt for some bankers who get a very concessional rate loan with 3% or 4% for them to buy a house. So that makes sense only and only if your children are going to use that house. Don't buy a house on interest just because interest rate is low and give it on rent and find that the rental value is nothing great and you're struggling to pay the EMI. Then this really hurts you. So if you're buying a house and giving it to your son or daughter for usage and they will pay the EMI, maybe they'll give you rent and you pay the EMI, then it makes sense, right? So be careful about that. Of course, there is another big major problem saying not having any plan, not planning at all for just generally in life, and therefore not having enough cash for your day-to-day expenses, not building an emergency fund. All those things are there. But I thought I've covered the top 5 or 6, and other general retirement mistakes we will do separately. Thank you.